one of the things that I've always been intrigued with, really, and I think it's misunderstood, is why are operations misunderstood in the industry? Why do you think agency owners, MD, sort of misunderstand what the role of operations is within an agency and within the industry in a wider context?
I think the main thing is that a lot of people bring operations into the company or promote someone from within, from either a finance role or from a project management role into operations or into an operational role. And they see it more as like, oh, we took a deliver process, or we're just keeping things together, patching over the cracks in the actual business itself without actually figuring out what their purpose of it is. We fill a lot of gaps. And so operations can also mean a lot of things to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so there's never, in my opinion, except for the last couple of years, where the likes of yourself and others in the industry have started championing operations within digital. It's people have kind of just made it up as they go along, as I did, as I started,
Yeah, and I think that point there of people sort of falling into an operations role. I've seen a lot of people who, for example, might have come back as from maternity, were client service director, being maternity, and they've come back and don't really want to come back to 5 days a week. So, oh, you can take on operations.
Yeah.
So I've seen quite a bit of that. So I guess I'm interested in your story. How did you become head of operations at Rise of Seven? What's the story of Ryan getting there?
So, like everyone else, it was I can't remember who keeps telling me this, but it's, you don't ever go, operations isn't on your usual career path in lots of ways. But I came out of uni in 2008, financial crash. I was getting job offers as like recruitment consultants and things like that because they were the only jobs going. A friend of mine was finishing his PhD at Loughborough for website effectiveness, and he was like, "I've got a couple of websites to build. I haven't got the time to fancy learning how to dev." And I was like, "Yeah, cool." So I just learned how to code. This was back when tables were sort of going out of fashion and CSS was starting to become a thing and WordPress was in its infancy. And I put together a couple of sites, and we went from there. He finished university. We're like, "Oh, crap, we've got enough work here to set us up." Me and him ran that for about 10 years, grew to a team about size about 10, worked with likes of Nike and Puma, some really cool
Wow.
athletes like Usain Bolt and Chelsea Football Club, a lot in sport. If you go to Loughborough, you've got connections
Yep.
in sport. But we had different ambitions. I wanted to be part of something big. He wanted to keep it more of a lifestyle business. So I sold up to him and joined 6B up in Wakefield as the head of the creative team. Progressed into the new biz director, did that for just over a year, and then when we restructured and we brought on the chairman, I took on the ops role about 3.5 years ago, something like that. It was one of those where I had the most interesting part of that was that our chairman was like, "This, you've got to hit EBITDA as your number. That's your thing. How we go about it, I don't know, don't care in some ways. Just make sure we hit EBIT every single month. That's it." I was like, "Okay, cool." Which was quite fun because you get to then learn that you've got a bit of wiggle room to go into different parts of the business and just see what's happening and fix it. So some weeks it was like I was working on management team training, knowing that we weren't getting the most out of the managers and the team after them. Sometimes it was onboarding, trying to allow people to join the business quicker, get up to speed quicker, get utilization numbers up faster. And sometimes it was time tracking and educating around the team on that. And sometimes contract negotiations. It was quite varied. But because I had that singular number to hit, which is exactly the same at Rise, it gave me a bit of leeway to sort of go into different things, figure out stuff and work it. And then 10 months ago, joined Rise in December. And it's been a lot of fun so far.
So I think for me, there's a couple of interesting points there. The first one was around operations owning the EBIT number and being responsible for driving that number. I think that's really interesting. Also, the agency you joined, what sort of size were they when they were saying, "Look, we want you to come in as operations. The number you're going to own and have an impact on is the EBIT month in, month out," as you said. What sort of size were they at that point, Ryan?
When I joined, we were about 20. When I took the ops role, was about 35 people. When I left, we were about 45, 50, something like that.
Okay.
in healthcare integrations and software. So NHS and things like that, we were working in mainly.
And was there a point where the agency they felt they was at a size that operations was now fundamental to their success and hitting that EBIT? How did that conversation come around? Because I know lots of agencies have that, and this will probably come onto another part of the story I'd love to speak about. They have that concept that overheads is a cost and not a direct driver of EBIT. So talk to me a little bit about the conversations around that. Because I know there'll be a lot of people on this call that are probably wrangling with those type of questions themselves. And I think that'd be really interesting.
So the way we set it out was that Martin, our chairman, that's how he did it previously, and it worked for him and other businesses. The way you'd have someone looking after front of office, sales, commercials, and all bits and pieces like that. Yeah, the middle office, which was the operations, which was effectively the engine house of the company.
Yep.
The work, getting all that work done, and then back house, which was CEO, HR, and things like that. That's how they worked it. So you almost sort of, you got the top level revenue figure, which was front of house. Then it filters down to us, which is the middle of the team, which is the EBIT, and then obviously finance and HR and things like that. They do their part at the end of it. It's similar-ish to how we do it at Rise, but I'm obviously in charge of EBIT and helping us achieve that number. But it was mainly to give us some structure as to know who was tackling what part of the company, and who had the remit to go and do certain things. Because I think when it comes to putting ops person in, I speak to businesses about this, and sometimes they're quite worried about giving a lot of transparency around the financial metrics of the business.
Yep.
But ops need to know, we need to have access to the contracts, we need to have access to people's wages. We need to know the percentages that drive us forward. Otherwise, how can we help and how can we fix anything?
Yeah. Okay. And that sort of leads me on to the other question around this concept that operations is a cost. I think there's another role that I often see people classing as being a cost as well, and that's a resourcing manager. They say just an overhead, and for me, you're a 30-man agency, you've got probably £3 million worth of stock. Tell me a business operates £3 million of stock without a warehouse manager. So I think ops and resourcing fall into that sort of same mindset of it's an overhead, it's a cost. What's your thoughts around that? And more importantly, and I'm asking you this because I think you will have this. Do you have any stories, stats that can back up ops isn't a cost? He's an absolute driver to EBIT. And I normally wouldn't put someone on the spot and ask for numbers, but I've got a feeling you probably do know some numbers.
Well, it's a good job because I've been doing this over the course of last week with the FD. It's 100%. I think people don't see it as this is a cost because generally people lump billable and non-billable people as separate. And we do in lots of ways. We've got billable people who we track their time and we track their sort of the time that they're allocated to work. But the difference is that what we can do now at Rise is track the difference operations makes on those numbers.
Okay.
So, for instance, I 100% agree. Like resource management or traffic management is a kind of a thankless task in lots of ways, but if it's done well, really, really well, it makes a huge difference to revenue numbers. So we recently hired a traffic manager at Rise. The big task for us in operations this year has been getting us to 70% utilization mark. Get us to 70% because then we know across the business that we're selling correctly.
So that's your
money.
That's your KPI for this year. Hit 70% utilize. I mean that in itself is interesting. The current average utilization I see across my clients is 62%. If I run a utilization report, that's taking into account like stripping out the holidays for the week and things like that. But the net utilization figure I see is 62%. So I think if you then get by these processing resourcing managers get to drive that to 70%, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I mean so we were towards the end of last year we were getting better, but we averaged about 50% last year, so we needed to get that a huge amount better. This year we've been averaging just shy of 65. So we made big leaps over the course of this year. We made a decision to get in a resource manager because a lot of people in ops, you'll know, Jay, it's you're good at stuff, but you're not brilliant at everything.
Yeah, yeah,
You've got to find experts to help you. So we found a traffic manager. She started recently, and over the course of the last just over a month, by working with the team to plan everyone's time in a much better way. 50 odd people planning their time is no mean feat, and teaching and educating better about timesheeting and how to timesheet correctly and where their time goes into what buckets. She increased us by 5% over the course of the month.
5%. So
That
how many chargeable people have you got?
just shy of 50 odd.
50. So if they were all getting an extra, say, hour a week chargeable,
Mhm.
£5,000 a week.
Well, what I worked out was that if we did the same utilization target as last month compared to this month, we take all the holidays and things like that, it's just shy of 40 grand extra added to revenue
So 40 grand of revenue for the month
for the month.
by sorting out your operations and bringing in a resourcing manager
Mhm.
to make sure the work's being delivered efficiently.
Exactly. And if
Okay.
we were tracking the same way we were to hit 70 at the end of the year, so we've gone and say now we hit 70 every single
Yeah.
month, the next 4 months, it'll add an extra 100 grand and some onto revenue over the course of this year. So revenue, you don't have to go and sell, you don't have to
Yeah.
get more work in. It's work we've already got and work we're doing that we can bring in from next month, from January, from February, to do it quicker. We can just do it faster because we've got more time available in the team to actually do it. So we can track and put a number against efficiency.
So if you even said conservatively, you think that can add 20 grand a month on, you're dropping an extra thick end of £250,000 to your bottom line.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know many agency owners I work with would be over the moon to get a client spending £250,000 or two clients,
Yeah.
one and a quarter each. So actually, that's really demonstrating that process, really driving it, getting the people in. It's
Yeah.
driving
100%.
bottom lines.
Yeah. It's when we, because the thing is, when it comes to actually effective time planning and utilization, a lot of that 5% is usually the headspace used in the team to do the planning,
Yeah,
and be involved in the admin. And that stuff slows them down because they got context switch and all that jazz. But actually removing stuff from their day to day, allowing them to do the work that they've employed to do, the stuff they really want to do at Rise.
one to the
It speeds us up even further. So it's a 5% on the numbers, but actually it will mean a far increase of a much higher increase of actual workload than anything else, because they don't have to jump between, oh, I've got a plan and change the admin task here, etc., etc. I can actually just focus on
on
doing
delivering the
work and
work.
working with the team. Exactly.
And do you think there's a size that an agency gets to where you think, right, we need to be bringing in the ops capabilities, then we do need to bring in the resource manager, capabilities. Have you got any thoughts around that, Ryan? What sort of size you think that is for an agency?
I would think probably 20, 25 people
Yeah.
makes most sense. At that point, you're sort of out of, everyone still, but you don't have all the sort of really close relationships you would have at a sort of a 10, 15 person business. And then you need someone who can have a bit more of a bird's eye view of what's happening, drill into stuff, help speed the team up effectively. Resource, I mean, I would have loved someone as soon as I started at Rise, but it just wasn't the case. So probably around 50 odd people, I reckon. But at the same time, I was doing a lot of it previous, and was doing okay. But actually, it was, like I said, we can prove the value in getting in someone to do that instantly, just by getting someone who's a professional in to do it, rather than me, doing a half decent job.
I'm sure it was better than half decent, Ryan.
Amy has, yeah, my ego's taken a battering over the last month, her showing me exactly how to do it, which has been amazing.
That does sound. I mean, the resourcing thing again, it fits under operations. It's quite interesting. You often find the heads of the departments end up doing the resourcing, who are the
Mhm.
most expensive people in the
Yeah.
business, in that particular department,
Mm.
and now resourcing their team.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were doing. I mean, they know a lot about what's happening in the projects, which is great, and they need to add context, and they feed the information to Amy, but Amy's the gatekeeper now, and they know they've been like, thank you, take this off of me, take this stuff off of me. But then getting involved to help Amy help her direct where her time should be spent, because she doesn't know what's happening on the project, or doesn't necessarily know if something's urgent.
Yeah,
She's been brilliant in just reaching out, speaking to people and teams, making it super easy for them to give her the information, and she can just work her magic.
brilliant, brilliant. So I know you also really kind of give your time up for people coming into the role as new operations managers, and you do a little
Mhm.
bit of sort of mentoring and coaching with them to help them. So Jay Neal, new to operations. I've reached out to Ryan. Ryan's gone, Jay, absolutely, I'm going to help you. I'm made up. What are the sort of KPIs you might be telling me to look at? What are the levers I can pull if I've got BI on that driving of the EBIT? What are the things you'd be telling me to
Mhm.
focus on? What are the things I could do the day to day, week in, week out, month in, month out are going to have positive effects on driving that EBIT?
Yeah. I think the thing that is going to go through everything is culture. So um, making sure that you've got a team that are, um, I'd like to think sort of performance culture, an idea that you've got people have to feel psychology safe in what they do, but also there has to be accountability that goes hand in hand with that. Um, yeah, Psychological safety on its own isn't enough to push a team forward, but if they're accountable for their actions and their work together, that works really well. So I'd say that look for that first, but also understand where you've been. So look for the reporting and the forecasting metrics that you can use. Yeah, resource. How much time have you got to play with? How much time have you got to play with in the future? How much is a project costing you, and how much is it going to cost you in the future? Try and get, if you can, do to revenue recognition and things like that. It's difficult to say the exact KPI for something like utilization, because like you said, you've been working with companies that are doing for 62.5, and that's working well enough for them. We have 70, we take out holidays and things like that, so it's just pure working
Yeah.
time.
Well,
Um, and we do that because we've got a lot of new business to hit, so we have a lot of time within the team for new business. So I'd say look for your culture, look for the reporting and forecasting metrics that will actually is and drive you forward. Usually utilization, usually something to do with cash. Hopefully you might have someone in the finance role to help you with those bits and pieces, but how much is the project costing you now? How much does it cost you in the future, based on the rates and the numbers you've got? And that's probably like a baseline to start
baseline to
with,
look at.
because you can always start going up from there.
I mean, the utilization question I think is really interesting. I know that my average I look at across all our clients is around 62%. But people always say to me, what's the average utilization figure? And I always say to them, well, I know it, but why does it matter? Because your utilization figure should be what you need to achieve
Mhm.
the goals that you want to
Yeah,
achieve in your
to
business.
make you profit.
Yeah, to make you profit. So for some, 62 might be great, but for others, they need it to
Mhm.
be at 75%.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So basically, the key things, if you're going in as that ops manager, focus on your culture, make sure everyone's swimming in the same direction,
Mhm.
all pulling towards the company goal, have
Yeah,
the reward, but also accountability within that.
100%.
You've been rewarded. There's this great culture, but you're accountable for delivering your part of the role that drives all of that. And
Mhm.
then keep your eye, it sounds like, on the numbers that are absolutely relevant to your particular agency. Averages in
100%.
industry, averages and benchmarks are good to have, but having numbers that are planned to what you want to achieve seem to be critical.
Yeah, taking the industry average of like you say, 62.5% of whatever it is for utilization, it's a base and it's something to work from. But like you say, if it doesn't, that number might not deliver profit for you,
Yeah,
and so it's pointless at that point.
well, that's
Work
correct.
if you work it out based on what you need, the time in the team, etc. A really nice, easy one to work from is how much revenue you're doing that month, and what's the cost of the employees. If you hit between 55 and 65%, you're probably making profit.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's going to be difficult, but that's a nice, easy benchmark to work with as well.
And I think that over the last few months, especially since COVID, the salary ratio that I've seen has definitely crept north of 65%.
Hmm.
So I think that's what's put a lot of pressure on agencies at the moment. After COVID, lots of salaries increased in a mad way. I couldn't believe it. And I said, I don't think this is sustainable for the industry. And now I
Yeah.
think it's starting to come home to roost a little bit. So you're right, having
Mhm.
the utilizations in line with that has got to be up there. Ryan,
Yeah.
can you believe it's 9:54?
No, no, I can't.
I said we'd try to finish around 5 to so people can grab coffees and get ready for their next meetings. Ryan, I've really enjoyed chatting to you this morning. If I sat over a coffee or a beer with you, I'm sure I could chat with you for another couple of hours on stuff, and we'd proper nerd out on KPI
Yeah, 100%.
utilization figures. With all our guests who come on the A game, we always ask them for, I guess, sort of one nugget of advice, one bit of gold dust that you can give for the people listening to this and people that will listen to this in the future. What would you say to them? What's your one bit of advice, your golden nugget, your
Um,
secret?
I think the thing that's been sort of rattling around in my head over the course of the last couple of weeks, is that I think the important thing within the industry and important thing with Rise and where I've been previous is that a lot of the outcomes you want to achieve are very similar. We want to be profitable. We want to do, great work. We want to do all these things. But then taking the stuff I've said today might not work for you, but the metrics and the KPIs that I know are going to drive you forwards, like utilization and staff to revenue ratio, are going to give you really good indicator as to if
Yep,
it's right for you. But the route you take to get there has to be your own. It has to work with the culture of the business.
yep,
And I think that's the thing that I've learned most from joining Rise, because it's such a interesting and unique culture that I went in and I was like, we need PMs, and they're like, nah, that won't work here. That will not work here. We have to approach it in a different way. It's like, cool, but I still need that output or that outcome from within the business. Just have to approach it in a completely different way. So I think that's the main thing that's been sort of rattling around in my head for the last couple of weeks.
so basically, understand the numbers, the KPIs you need, but achieve them within the right culture of what the agency is currently. Don't
100%.
and try to be like, we need this, and blow all the culture out the
Yeah,
water.
yeah. What work for Spotify, work for Spotify. They won't work for you. That's
Yeah.
you can take ideas, but test and learn yourself, figure it out with the team. I think that'll set you in better stead long term.